Hey everybody, Brian with Drooling Moose Hideaway, and today I'm going to answer your questions when we told you, ask us anything. So I'm just going to jump right into this. We have several people that ask questions, and so I'm just going to read these questions out and answer them the best I can. All right. So, first questions we have here is Lisa, and she says, I was wondering if you might have some time to answer some questions for me. In a few weeks, we're going to be seriously looking for a piece of property to move to and change our lives. Great. We're looking right now in the North Carolina mountains. That's a nice place. Thought about Maine, but worried about, where to work in the winters. They're looking for, 4 to 10 acres, maybe putting a camper on it to start out, as you did, until we can build shelter. And they mentioned a cabin, a yurt, pole barn. Cool. Sounds great. It sounds like good, the overall plan. She says, what I'd like to know is how you did it in the camper the first couple of winters. What did you do for water, bathing, laundry? I'm assuming laundromat. And what you did for heat and cooking. If you could help, it'd be great. We start working through this? Well, first off, I think it's great. I like to see people kind of, walk into freedom. It's kind of, I think it's maybe a little overused term, but, just going and changing their life in whatever that direction may be, even if you're not looking at, going off grid and doing the whole thing, but just, looking for whatever it is and going for it. It's great. So let me get to answering your questions, because that's really what you want, right? Let's see. How do we do it the first couple winters in the camper? The first winter we were still in Philadelphia, just outside Philly, and we were in like an RV park with full hookups and stuff like that. So, basically, just using the propane furnace, and when I built it, I built in an electric fireplace deal that I built into it, and so that's how we stayed warm. The winters are more mild there. Really wasn't too bad at all. Now, the first winter here, we made some changes. First of all, we didn't have electric for the electric fireplace, and I wasn't going to run generators and stuff like that for it. And the other thing is the camper was a 1988. If y'all haven't checked out, kind of back to the beginning, if you go on our the Facebook group for Drooling Moose Hideaway, you can go and look at pictures and posts all the way back to the beginning of when we first bought the camper, and you can see all we did to it. But it was an old 1988, and it had the original furnace in there that looked like it had probably never been serviced. Of course, I found this out when it broke. We couldn't even get parts for it. It was going to be, a fairly expensive thing to replace. I think we looked at it was, like $1,000 for a used one, and have to install it. And then, of course, we have to burn through propane and whatnot. So what I did for the winter, when we were coming into winter up here, we realized, the furnace is broke, the electric's not doing good. I ripped out the electric fireplace that we put in. We built it above like a corner cabinet or whatever. Took that out, ripped out the cabinet, and I put in a small wood stove. Now, this isn't something I recommend everybody do in their camper, right? For one thing, you have to be very careful to do it properly to help protect with the heat and everything like that, with concerns for fire and whatnot. Two, you got to cut a big hole. I guess you could put it in the roof. We got to have a chimney and everything for it. So if it's a camper, you're planning on moving around later and actually want to use it for camping and whatnot after you're done being in it or whatever, maybe not the best option. I'm sure there are some ways that you could do it and put a good stovepipe and chimney up, and the camper is perfectly fine to be driven down the road or whatever. I wasn't concerned about that. The camper was on the property. We're not ever going to use it for camping again. We're considering moving it. I cut a big hole in the wall, and stuck a chimney pipe out and up, and that was good for a couple reasons. One, I have a free unlimited supply of firewood on the property, right? So I wasn't paying for all the propane that it was going to use to keep the camper warm, with walls that are an R rating of like 2, basically not insulated. And two, one of the big issues that you have with a camper, especially in the winter, is moisture and condensation and stuff like that. Every camper I've dealt with anyway has had, issues with this. A lot of people living in campers running dehumidifiers a lot and whatnot. And propane heat itself is damp. It's moist. The way it burns and everything like that, the air blowing through is not dry. It's more of a damp heat. And so that can compound those problems. The wood stove was good because it's very dry heat, kept things dried out and helped take care of some of the condensation and moisture problems. We did burn through quite a lot of wood when you were considering we're, heating like a couple hundred square feet. Because again, insulation value just really isn't there when it's cold and everything like that. We did some other things with the Mylar. It's like a bubble wrap insulation is made out of Mylar. Over the windows helped sometimes with the cold. Actually, we use that more in the summer with the heat because that thing would just be like a tin can, and putting those up in the windows really helped on the hot days. On the sunny side, you kind of put that up over the windows. But so that's what we did for heat for the winter. What do we do for water? Bathing and laundry. So I'm guessing you're asking about this as far as like in the winter or just in general. I'm not sure, but so for water, we did what we do now. We haul the water from the spring. Now we recently put the pump down by the brook to pump for basically all of our water except for like our drinking, potable water. All the washing and water for the animals and stuff like that. We get that right from the brook. We pump it up, but we still haul all our drinking water and everything from the spring, and that's what we did. Now the spring that we get our water from flows year round. It's right up out of the ground, and so it doesn't freeze before it comes out. Even on the coldest days, it still had liquid water coming out. A lot of ice formed around it and kind of had to be careful. It could get a little dicey around the spring where, it was flowing out and things would ice up around it. But, water all year round there. Bathing, take some of that water, heat it up, put it in the bathtub, wash everybody up. And then instead of draining it through and into the holding tanks and all that stuff, it would get bucketed out and taken out. As far as, the gray water. All the gray water. So, if you are planning on using the internal plumbing on the camper, you need a way to keep it from freezing. Now, if you're in, where was it here? Northern North Carolina. You're going to get, maybe a handful of nights that get below freezing there. I think, maybe in the mountains a little bit more, but nothing like the winters here. So it shouldn't be too hard to keep your pipes from freezing. If you're going to have electricity, there's definitely ways to winterize. Look up like winterizing or not winterizing, but there's plenty of good, videos on YouTube and stuff like that for, winter camping in your camper and how to insulate your pipes and whatnot. You're probably going to be fine up there. Just putting some pipe insulation around your pipes probably do fine for you. We did find out when we were in the camper, when we were running a furnace in the winter on the 20 or 40 pound propane tanks, that when it gets really cold and those tanks start getting a little lower, you will not get the pressure you need, and things will not work right off that propane because of the temperature being so cold. It doesn't evaporate as fast and you lose pressure. You may need to do some things to keep your tanks warm. If it's getting cold, you're using smaller tanks. It's not usually an issue with like larger, propane pigs and stuff like that. But when we were in Philadelphia using the propane there, we did put, and honestly, it was real simple. I just bought one of those cheap, plug-in work lights. They're like $7 or whatever. You put a regular bulb into, and just like a 100-watt light bulb, and put it in there and stuck it up under the cover where the propane tanks are, and that kept it warm enough that we kept enough pressure to be able to run the heater. But that's something to watch though when it's really cold if you're using smaller tanks, because especially if you have an older furnace like what we had, it would put out propane still but wouldn't ignite. So you have to be real careful with that. And it's just something to keep an eye on. Let's see here. And as far as laundry, so I'll put a link in the description to the washing machine we have. We have a small, it's kind of a portable washing machine. A lot of people use them. They're great for campers. They're good for like really small apartments. They're good as a backup type of deal, or off grid or whatever. They're pretty nifty. It's about $100, I think, when we got it. I'll have to check the price now, but I want to say they're roughly like $100. I think it was like $99 literally is what we paid for it. But it's a just small unit. You could set it on a table, portable. It's real light. It's like the whole tub's just plastic. You can pick it up, move it around. It does run off 110 AC. So you would need to run a generator or have a regular, an AC plug-in or whatever, or run it off of an inverter, something like that. But the way it works is there's two sides, right? So you have the agitation side and you have a spin side. So, and it operates the same as a regular washing machine you might be familiar with at home, except you have to do the different stages, right? You kind of have to do everything as far as you put your laundry in, and then you need to take water and you pour water in. And then you add your soap, whatever, and then you turn it on, set a timer, and it'll agitate for the time that you set it to. And then when it's done, you have to turn the switch and drain it. There's like a drain hose, right? So then you have to drain it out. And when it's done draining, you take the clothes, put it in the spin side, turn it on, it spins, and then they go back into the agitation side, clean water to rinse them, drain it, back into spin, and then you dry them. So, maybe we'll do a video sometime just showing how it works and how we do our laundry, so some of you can see, but I will put a link in the description for Amazon. They work really well. And for like $100 as a washing machine, we wash all our clothes for a family of 5 in it. The only thing it's not gonna be able to do is like large comforters and stuff like that, just aren't gonna fit. That's the only time we might go to the laundromat. We'll wash them by hand, like in the summer or whatever outside. In the winter, we might go down to the laundromat every once in a while to wash like the big heavy quilts or whatever. But that's about the only time. Let's see, what did we do for cooking? Again, we had just had the propane stove and oven that was in the camper. Ran it off propane. That's what we did for cooking in the camper. So I hope that answers your question, Lisa. Sorry this took a couple days to get out. I recorded this like the day that we asked for questions, and it didn't record right. And so we tried to redo it, and then I had issues with batteries dying. And anyway, so here we are. I hope that answered your question. Thanks for the great questions. Send us updates on your move and everything that's going on there. We'd like to hear from you. Hit us up on Facebook, or you can always feel free to email us. All the links to contact us are going to be down in the description. All right. So the next question we have here is from Donna. And Donna asks, how do you take care of waste materials, septic? So I don't know if what she means by waste materials as far as like septic type waste materials, or like gray water, or if she's talking about other type of like extra building materials and she's asking about septic. I'm not quite sure. So I'm just going to answer it all. Okay. Do you wash clothes on site at this point, and will that change in the future? So I did answer the previous question about doing laundry. We have a portable wash machine we use with the generator right now. We also do have an old wringer washer that I picked up on Facebook, and it's in working order as far as the mechanisms and all work. All the pieces are there, but it does need a little bit of fixing up. The rollers are extremely worn out and just kind of needs a little bit of TLC. So that's one of my projects. I don't know if I'll get to it this summer. It might be kind of one of those over the winter projects type deal, because we're just so busy, slammed in the summer. Way more projects than we can possibly have time or money to do. And so, some of that stuff gets pushed off. Maybe we'll work on it over the winter. And, if you guys are interested, I can do a video on how to, on that project as well, kind of fixing that up and getting in a good working order there. As far as waste materials, and she says waste materials, septic. So I'm guessing you're talking about poo. No, we don't have a septic system here. I don't think we'll put one in. We use a composting toilet for those things. So a composting toilet. Maybe I'll do a video just on composting toilets sometime. But if you're not familiar with it, you do your business like you would normally do your business, but it goes into some sort of container. And then instead of flushing with water, you use an organic matter. We use wood shavings. That's generally what you use. You use wood shavings. You could use chopped straw. I mean, you could do a bunch of leaves if you wanted to, peat moss, stuff like that, right? And you just kind of put a layer down on top of what you've done, and then the next time someone has the need to use the facilities, they would just repeat that process. And then when said container is full, it gets put into the compost pile and composted. And so that's the way those types of things work. It's mostly with the number 2. There's a ton of different ways you can make them. You can make them simple, as simple as literally a 5-gallon bucket with a toilet seat on top. Or there's fancy ones that you can buy for like a couple $1,000 that have like, it looks like a space toilet, and you do your business, and then there's like a crank you crank, and it like mixes the stuff into it. There's a bunch of different ways, but they all work on the same basic concept. They're not stinky if you do it right and everything like that. It's just like going to the bathroom. You just, instead of flushing it down into the sewer, it's going and getting composted. And then that compost can then be used for trees or, whatever. Now I said before that we do separate that compost from the rest of our compost. And that's because it's recommended that type of compost not be used directly on like edible plants. So, they recommend you don't like put it right on your tomato plants. Um, Honestly, there shouldn't really be a problem if it's well composted. Um, to a point where it's at a point where you should be using it. Really shouldn't be a problem putting it on, vegetables and whatever. But it probably is a good idea just not to use it on that. Use it on your flowers or fruit trees, maybe, around the base of a fruit tree. It's not getting on the fruit that's up there. Um, you just wouldn't want it to come directly in contact with the stuff that you're going to eat because human waste can contain pathogens. Now, if it's well composted, it shouldn't be a problem, but we keep them separate. Just a little tidbit there. Let's see here. And I think we got it there. You asked about, gray water. That was the other thing. So we are going to be putting in a gray water field, a gray water system in the house to be plumbed in and all that. For the time being, until we've got all the plumbing and whatnot, I basically have a gray water area where the gray water goes and it's well drained and it's not close to where we're drinking water or anything like that. So we've got basically buckets, that, as we're washing up. So the washing water from the, washing machine goes into the bucket, the dishwater, all that kind of stuff, washing your hands, all that gray water goes in and gets dumped in a gray water area that we have. And we're also careful with all like anything we use for cleaning. We don't use chemicals for cleaning. I understand that like everything is technically a chemical. Water is technically a chemical, right? But I think you know what I mean when I say chemicals. Synthetic man-made chemicals that are potentially harmful. Okay. We use like natural soaps, cleaning and stuff like that. The only chemicals we have on this property are like some chemicals that I use for like maintaining vehicles or equipment or whatever, right? Like motor oil, carburetor cleaner, WD-40, whatever that's, lubricants and cleaners for that are just needed for mechanical stuff, right? Where there's really not like a natural replacement. Other than that, there's no other chemicals used on this property. So, our gray water's fairly clean is what I'm saying. Like our gray water consists of basically just water and dirt, food, stuff from washing dishes, and some kind of natural soaps. Nothing super harmful chemical stuff that's getting put out there either. And that's going to a gray water system, basically like a leach field. All right. So I hope that answers your question, Donna. Good questions. These are, these are the little things that, you have to figure out when you're coming in and you want to go totally off grid, or you're, building in this process like what we're doing, eventually, most of the things that we're doing now are going to change as we kind of progress through the process of building the homestead, and when we get plumbing in to the house, and then, okay, it's gonna be plumbed into a gray water system. We'll still be using a compost toilet, but it'll probably be much fancier. But it's still the same concept. All right, here. So the next question I have is from Anita. Anita's been on here for a long time. I think from like maybe the beginning. So there's a lot of you that have been with us from the beginning, and I think that's great. When I see, I go down through, I see your comments and stuff like that, and some of you are like, hey, this person, I know this person's been here a little while, and I click and it's like joined in January of 2017, and it's like, wow, it's crazy. So she asks, are you planning on making a bed and breakfast retreat that people can rent to see your beautiful hideaway place? And what all do you do to entertain your kids while you build if they don't want to or can't help? All right, so I wouldn't say bed and breakfast per se, at least not in like what I think of a bed and breakfast. I've only stayed in like one, but it's not kind of how I would describe it anyway. But um, in a sense, yes, we do have plans. Eventually, we want this place to be a place where people can come and they can learn, and they can experience it. Experience homesteading and off grid and the kind of the small farming and forestry and all that stuff, and come and learn. We want to do classes and workshops and just do tours and whatnot. That is our vision for the future. We have a lot that needs to be done before then. But there are plans for eventually putting in some off-grid cabins on the other side of the property that people can stay in if they're coming specifically to visit our place, or even just renting them out, like Airbnb style, something like that, to people that are up here vacationing. We are also looking at, in the next year or two, partnering with something like Hip Camp, where we'll have some campsites. People can come camp. Stuff like that. So like as these things kind of evolve, we'll let you know. But that is sort of the vision for the future, and to be able to do some education and classes and even just have meals with a bunch of people, stuff like that. We want to be able to have those facilities, and then what do we do to entertain our kids? Well, we build. If they don't want to or can't help. So I'll expand this question a little bit to do more than just building too. As far as if they don't want to, that's not really an option here. It's not an option in this family or on the homestead. Everybody has responsibilities. Everybody has chores and work and things that need to be done. And they are, of course, age appropriate and everything like that, right? But there are things that need to be done, and everybody helps out. It's not a question, if they want to, as far as that goes. Now, if they can't help, well, again, like I said, everybody has things that they do, that they're responsible for, that they help with around here, as far as the chores and the projects. Everybody's helping with them in some way, again, age appropriate. So like when we were building the house, right, Caleb, well, actually all the kids would help carry lumber, because we couldn't get the lumber delivered right here to the house. It was out at the road. All the kids helped, carrying 2x4s down. And stuff like that. They did a phenomenal job on that, and when we were building, Caleb, who's a little bit older, would do, a little bit more, with me, as far as helping to measure and mark out cuts and stuff like that. The girls would always help with getting nails, or even picking up. If you're anyone that's done a significant about a building, you go and you're working, you drop a nail, you're not spending the time to go pick it up. You're pull another nail out and go. And at the end of the day, you got some nails, you got wood scraps and stuff laying around that need picked up, and they'd help pick up with those. So everyone has jobs to do. So, but as far as entertaining the kids, we don't plop them in front of a TV or video games or any of that stuff. In the summertime, it's, you can hardly drag them inside. They're out playing in the woods and exploring and, building forts and all the fun things that kids their age should be doing. enjoying the outdoors and getting dirty and climbing trees and skinning their knees and, all those things. Wintertime can be somewhat of a struggle when we get, the long cold spells where, you're just not going to go play outside when it's 20 below. I'm sorry, as much as you're cooped up, it's, dangerous cold out there. Right. So, and that's where, while they're doing schoolwork, at that time we have lots of books to read and board games, and, they've got their toys, and, they're so all three of the kids are 18 months apart in age. They're close in age, so they play together pretty well. For the most part, they entertain themselves. That's kind of one of the good things. I think 3 kids is they can play together, right? Like cold days when they're cooped up inside or something like that, So, I get that sort of reaction from parents a lot of times when we tell them, we're off grid and stuff like that. We're not using it in the, and they're like, you don't have kids, do you? Yeah, we do. We have 3 kids. How do you do it without like the TV and the video games and the cell phones, and don't they bug you? No. I don't think any of us miss it. Now, that's not to say like we have a cell phone, we have internet connection, we have Amazon Prime. It's not to say we don't watch a TV show or a movie now and then. We do. But it's like a rare treat. Usually it's like, there's been a few times where, Molly was feeling a little bit under the weather. She had a few days, a few months ago, she had a couple days where she was just really sick, tired, just kind of resting in bed. And she's like, here's a phone. Here's a movie on Amazon Prime. You watch that, type of deal. But it's the exception rather than the rule. So, I hope that answers your question. And, these are great questions, guys. I'm enjoying this. I'm sorry, this video is probably going to be a little bit long, but I, wanted to answer all your questions and wanted to do it in depth, not just kind of throw out token answers just to say that I answered your question. I wanted to kind of, actually give you the information. All right. So this next question comes from Sandra. And Sandra asked, can you tell us what you are planning to do with your animals? Sell, eat, etc. So, the main purpose of our animals is food production, to feed ourselves first. And this is kind of the definition of the difference between like a homestead and a farm. Some people are like, kind of what's the difference? Basically, by sort of definition, you could say, is that a farm's primary purpose is to produce food to sell. Okay, when like the primary goal of what you are growing is to sell it. A homestead, the primary goal is to feed yourself. Now, that doesn't mean that we won't sell some of our food that we produce. And that doesn't mean that farmers don't eat some of their own food, right? But it's kind of like, what's the primary purpose? What, the primary effort is going into. And so that's what our animals, primarily is to, produce eggs and meat for us. But, there's other products too. So, when, you're raising an animal, and not only have you put the money and time into them, but you invest some of yourself when you raise a small animal into an adult, and then you choose to, kill it to eat it. Okay. If you're going to do that, you owe it to the animal, I think, to get everything that you can out of it. So, for example, we raise meat rabbits. Okay. When we butcher a meat rabbit, okay, we have the parts of the rabbit that we are interested in eating. Okay. And then there's some of the organs and entrails and stuff like that the dogs would be interested in eating, the bones and some of the offal and whatnot, or when we get pigs, whatever. Um, and then the pelts, we can skin them, we can tan them, and they can be used either to make, warm hats, or we could sell them as well. So, using as much of that animal as possible, right? Not just taking it to a processor and getting packaged meat back. But trying to use as much of them as possible. I think that's an important thing to do. So, let's see here. And on this subject, Anne also asked a question after this. She said, "Do you plan to self-process any animals?" The short answer is yes. We plan on self-processing basically all of our animals. That's not to say I won't use a processor when it makes sense to do so. So, for example, like processing a large pig does require a certain amount of like equipment. Like that's a big animal to have to move around once it's dead and scald it and do all the things. It can totally be done on farm, but until we have some of that kind of set up to make it easy, it could be that the first couple pigs we do go to a processor, just because that is quite a different thing than processing a chicken, or even processing a goat or something like that. Or same thing with like a cow. So, we plan on some point getting a dairy cow. I think that probably for quite a while, the beefs that we get off of that will go to a processor, just because it is an extremely large animal. Just the logistics of moving it around become difficult, and being able to get that processed, in a timely manner and everything like that. But everywhere else, a self-process. I think it's important to do, kind of going back to, you owe it to the animal. You've taken the responsibility on, the intent from the beginning, that you are going to raise this animal, take care of it, feed it, and it's important to do that to the best of your ability. Feed it the best food that you can, give it the best life that you can, well taken care of, right? For the animal, and also for you, you're going to get a superior product out of it. But then I think it's important to process it yourself. At least I do. It's not something that I enjoy doing, as far as like, I don't enjoy slaughtering an animal. But I'm willing to do it because there's a reason. I'm feeding myself, I'm feeding my family, and I know I've taken care of that animal. Or like hunting. A lot of people really like hunting. They enjoy the action of hunting and all the things that come with hunting, and they really enjoy the harvest of it, as far as the yield that they get out of it and feeding their family. But I think few hunters really actually enjoy the the part where you're actually killing that animal. So I think it's important. It's important to have that skill to be able to do it. It's oftentimes cost effective, depending, right? So again, there's sometimes where it makes sense, it just makes a whole lot more sense to have it processed, and that's one thing too, right? You may be set up and be okay with processing a pig, but what if you wanted to process 10, right? Because that's a long day processing a pig, even with like a few people helping. That's a long day, right? If you're gonna do 10 of them, sometimes it just makes sense. All right. So next question I have here is from Keith. He asked, "What has been your biggest challenge in this off-grid adventure?" This question I had to think about it a little bit. It's kind of tough, and I don't know why it's a hard question to answer. I had to think about it, but I decided on this. At least the biggest challenge for me, it's not so much the physical things that we're doing. It's not the going without electricity. It's not the hauling water. It's not the work of building a house or clearing land. I mean, some of that stuff can be difficult, but really what it is being able to kind of let go in a way, as far as staying motivated and driven to do this. The motivation isn't such an issue. It's more not getting overwhelmed, because when you go to do this, whether you're going as far off grid and whatever and going from scratch as we are, or you're maybe moving on to an established kind of homestead that was kind of there already, and kind of making it your own and growing it. Everywhere you look, you will see another thing that needs to be done. You just will. There's another project over there. There's another thing that needs to be fixed. There's another thing that needs to be built. There's another thing that you want to do, all the time. It's constant. I sit anywhere on this entire 50 acres, and there's nowhere that I can look where there's not something that could be done, or I want to do, or needs to be done, etc. And so it's not getting overwhelmed with that. I'm the kind of person that likes to be able to have things done and get things in order, and etc. And it was done a lot better. I'm not perfect at it, but it was a bit rocky at first, when it was just seemed like I work and work and work and work. Every time I do something, there's now 10 more things that need done. You have to accept that. If you're going to go do this, you have to accept that is the way it's going to be. You will never be done building. If you really care about it and you have a passion for it and you have a clear goal, you will never actually be done. You won't be, I don't know, satisfied is the right word. I'm satisfied. I love being here. I just, I'm blown away some days that I get to live this way in this beautiful place. And sometimes that's the key, though, is just stopping and reminding yourself. Sometimes you just need to take a couple minutes, take a walk in the woods, or look at the sunset, or sometimes you need to take a day that what, instead of we're going to do the chores that have to be done, but instead of working on a project or whatever today, I know there's a million things that need to be done. I'm going to take the day and go play in the brook, or go build a fort with my kids, or go, watch them climb trees, or whatever it might be, or just sit on the porch. Sometimes it's just sit on the porch and drink a cup of coffee, or, a glass of iced tea, or whatever it might be, and just be reminded of why I love doing this. I think that's the trick, but it really is understanding that There's always going to be more that you want to do. There's always going to be things that need, your attention and things that need fixed. And all you can do is just prioritize them. Okay. And that's why, I get questions. Why haven't you done this? Or, hey, it would be a great idea if you did that or whatever. And a lot of times my answer is, yep, that's great, but it's not a priority right now. As much as I would love to go do X, Y, or Z right now, this is a priority, right? And that priority list is constantly shifting. It changes monthly, weekly, daily, sometimes hourly. Okay? Very few times. That doesn't mean don't have a plan. You should have a plan. But understand that no plan survives first contact. Right? Have a plan, have a goal, but be flexible. You have to be able to have room in there as much as possible. Now, there are some things that just need to be done. I came home the other night and I was getting home. It was a little late, kind of getting dark. And I looked, I said, okay, we got to pump some water tonight for tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be a hot day. And I want to make sure that there's plenty of water here available for all the animals and washing and everything like that for tomorrow. We need to pump some water. And so normally what we do is Caleb will usually go down and he'll turn the pump on, and then I'll be up here and I'll fill up all the water containers and buckets and whatnot. Sometimes we'll flip it, just kind of depends. So one person goes down and runs the pump. That way, as soon as we're done, the other person can shut the pump off. And that's just kind of the way we're doing it now with the setup we have. It's the way it needs to be done. And the pump wasn't running right. There was issues. I had to go down there. Couldn't figure out why, the pump was running and water wasn't going, and trying to figure it out. And I had to push everything else out and working, and it was getting dark, and the mosquitoes were out down there getting bit like crazy. And we had to get the tools and we had to go down there, and I'd already had a long day at work and had gotten home late already after dinner and had other things I would like to do or need, whatever, but that was the priority because the water is the priority. We've got to get water. And if we can't get the pump running, then that means we're going to have to go down to the spring and we're going to have to make several trips to get enough water for the garden and all the animals and everything like that, right? It's why we put the pump in down there, because to allow us to get, have more animals in the garden and all the different things, because there's only so much water you can haul. Okay. After doing it for a couple of years, there's only so much water I can haul. Okay. And, we've got to get the pump running. And so on the side of the brook, Caleb and I ended up tearing the pump down, ripping it apart, found a rock, actually some rocks that had somehow got into the system and jammed up the pump. We were able to clear it, get it all put back together. But, sometimes you can't just be like, well, I guess I didn't. No, it has to be fixed, right? But the priorities shifted. I had other plans for things to do that evening. The priority shifted right then. Right now, the priority is fixing the pump. That's the way it goes, and you just have to. That used to really frustrate me because I had my plan, I had my goal, and this is what's going to get done, and here's the timetable for it. And I had to learn that, what? Well, it's just like anything in life, but it just seems to be magnified somehow on the homestead. And, just had to, instead of getting frustrated by the fact that, now those other things I was going to do tonight, now those have to be done tomorrow. So those things have to be pushed off and I have to rearrange this or that. Sometimes you're going to have that. And I knew it's not like I thought before that I didn't have to take care of something like that. It's just, it would really irritate and frustrate me. It still does some, right? I'm still working on it, not just kind of blowing up about that, because, that really did. I mean, it threw off a lot of things. I was going to shoot a video that night. I had like a video plan that I was going to do some shooting for you guys, and instead I was out in the dark getting eaten by mosquitoes on the side of a riverbank, tearing a pump apart. So, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I would rather be doing that than sitting in the comfortable suburban hellhole that we were in Philadelphia, coming home after a long day and grabbing a beer out of the fridge and turning on the TV and, whatever. I would rather have that, because my life's just so much better. But, I would say that's the most difficult thing has been for us, for me especially. And I think that, I think that's something that gets to everybody doing this to some extent or another, and just learning that that's just reality of it. All right. Last question. Okay. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to cop out on this one a little bit. Okay. So, Andy asked, any common misconceptions you think new off-grid homesteaders have before taking the plunge? I'm not going to fully cop out on this. I'm going to cop out on it for now, because I got to looking at this question and I got to thinking about it, and it needs to have its own video. The answer to the question, honestly, as much as like I've expounded a lot on some of these questions, and I know the video's kind of long, there's so much there to take apart that I'm going to cop out a little bit, but so that I answer the question somewhat. You know what, Andy? I have thought about this question, and there's so much to unpack and tear apart in the question. It's a fantastic question that I think that I'm going to have to really kind of tear it apart and make some notes and whatever, and come back and address it separately. Just because I think there's a lot there. Going into the misconceptions that I had, the misconceptions that I see other people have, the misconceptions that I see people that have been doing it for a while that still have. There's a lot there. And so I promise I will address that in another video as soon as I can. I'm sorry, it's been quite a while since I've done a video for you guys. I really apologize. I'm trying to get these up every week, at least once a week. I would like to do 2 a week. It just can't always happen due to my work schedule and, again, priorities on the homestead. I try to, make these videos a high priority, but sometimes things happen that just kind of bump them out, unfortunately. And then we've had technical difficulties. We had an issue with we had an issue with video editing software that we had wasn't exporting videos, and then we had issues with the camera not saving recordings. Super frustrating. Okay, this is literally the 3rd time now that I have filmed this. And I'm actually doing it like one question at a time, and then stopping the camera and making a separate clip to make more editing for myself. But for whatever reason, I have recorded longer video before just fine. But every time I try to do this one, it gets to a point, and then I lose it all. I don't know why. I'm still trying to figure it out. We thought we had it fixed. We found some settings. We changed the settings. We filmed it again. We still lost it. So I'm really sorry, y'all, but we'll get the videos up. I know this one was delayed, and we haven't had one for a while. We're working out the kinks. That's all I can tell you. And just trying to roll these out when we can, but still try to do the best quality we can. Let me know. Tell me in the comments what kind of stuff you guys want to see. If these sort of long form deals like this, if you like them, if you hate them, let me know. Topics you want to see or hear about, videos that I want to do videos that you guys want to see. I'm not doing these for me. I really am doing them to try to share the experience and knowledge and whatever with you guys. So let me know if you want to see it. It's not a guarantee that, hey, I want to see this, that I'm going to pop it out right away, but I will save those and we'll do all the ones that we can when we can do them. Okay. So, leave those in the comments. Tell me what you want to see, what you like seeing. And any other questions that you guys have for us. I'll try to do kind of this regularly, maybe monthly or something like that. Do a kind of a Q&A. I know doing this live would be a better format. Unfortunately, I have issues with getting the bandwidth here to be able to do that without like cutting out and losing you guys. We've done some live before and it just has been kind of spotty and whatever. And certain times a year for whatever our signal changes with like foliage and stuff. So we may do more live in the winter. We seem to get better signal in the winter than in the summer here. So, live would be a great format for this. But this also lets me kind of, get to look at the questions and think about them and give you in-depth answers. That's what I'm trying to do rather than, we might do somewhere, some rapid fire answers. I just want to kind of give you some in-depth answers and kind of like we're having a chat. I hope this was helpful. I hope I answered your questions good. Thanks for stopping by. If you haven't already, check out all our other social media. These questions came from Facebook. So if you're not on our Facebook page, that really is a good place to be able to interact with us more. That's just kind of where we're on there a lot. You can ask us questions, make comments or whatever. We can hit right back with you and stuff like that. So, head on over to Facebook. All the links are going to be right down below in the description. Check those out. I will have links to the washing machine I was telling you about, as well as the cook stove. And I will catch you guys next time. Have a good one. Please, share the links with your friends. If you think they might be interested in it, we'd love to have them over here. And don't forget to hit subscribe and hit the notification bell. Thanks.